Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Fintech Friday. I'm Brian Vieaux, President and Chief Operating Officer at FinLocker, and your host of this weekly podcast. On this podcast, as you know, I like to talk with folks that are doing cool things and learn about new products or services. And so today we've got my friend Peter, and we're going to talk about a new role, Peter, that you took recently at the end of 2022, I guess now, and kind of dig into your new role, your new company, and kind of how you guys are kind of helping the real estate finance industry. But before that, welcome.
Thank you so much, Brian. Really pleasure to be here, and love what you're doing.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I tell folks that this is one of those opportunities where I literally get to learn about. Of course, I know you. We know each other going back past lives, but I get to learn about kind of a new product, a new service, and for me, selfishly, it helps me kind of stay in tune with what's going on in the industry, and the feedback I get from our audience is they enjoy learning about new products, new services, and trying to figure out if they make sense in their business. So thanks for spending some time with us today.
Absolutely.
Why don't you start by kind of just talking about a little bit of your background, what you've done in your career, and specifically what you've done in and around real estate finance, and then what led you to Cole.
Sure. Thank you. So I've been in really the venture capital, private equity business for a good part of my career, all in tech-enabled services. I've been involved in everything from mobile to security to prop tech, fintech, insurtech. So again, kind of a lot of the common elements for me in my career has been kind of understanding what goes on across an ecosystem. Prior to Cole, I was with Homebinder. Some of your audience might be familiar with Homebinder, and that's when we had met. Homebinder was effectively building a centralized management platform for all the business constituents that work with homeowners. Think of it as a digital version of your three-ring binder.
Right.
Through those, through the discussions and the partnerships I had with Homebinder, I actually had met Cole and met the founding team over there, and was intrigued at the kind of data and the actionable information and intelligence they're bringing to not just real estate, but a variety of markets within the ecosystem: insurance, home services, mortgage, et cetera. So I joined late 2022 as President and Chief Revenue Officer, again, to drive strategy, growth, and there's a lot of exciting things I look forward to talking about here.
Love it. Well, congratulations on that move. Every time you and I get on one of these calls, I always have to comment on your baseball stadium there over your shoulder. So
Fenway Park, right behind me.
Fenway Park, that's pretty cool. I love the drawing.
I am outside of Boston, so that's why Fenway's behind me.
Awesome. So let's dive into Cole a little bit, and maybe specifically talk about the data set and the attributes that you guys are able to kind of surface up for lenders, and then how lenders and others in the space can interact with that data.
Absolutely. So probably start with who is Cole Information. In certain industries, Cole is very well known. Mortgage is actually a new sector for Cole, and I'll get into that in a minute. But Cole Information is really a market leader in providing, I'll call it hyperlocal business intelligence solutions for real estate brokerage, insurance, home services, and most recently the mortgage industry. The platforms are purpose-built really for the industries that we serve. We serve all 50 states, including some of the largest real estate brokerages and insurance companies in the country. The business teams, our customers, use Cole's platforms for a couple of reasons, but primarily to implement and automate highly targeted campaigns. Leveraging the types of data that we have that I'll talk about in a minute that really enable highly targeted and valuable consumer engagements. And so that data includes demographic data, property data, financial data, weather data, and most importantly, contact information. That is from a standpoint of providing actions. That contact information is a unique and highly valued attribute of Cole. Additionally, enterprises and technology partners integrate Cole's data to augment leads, such as web form leads. If you do those, really to build highly successful direct-to-consumer marketing and sales campaigns. So a lot of the lenders I've been talking to recently that do have direct-to-consumer arms within their business see this as a way to integrate more intelligence into their workflow. We're launching into the mortgage industry, or have recently launched into the mortgage industry, particularly given what's going on in the industry within mortgage, with the goal being to garner more purchase and non-refi revenue. So as a result, we're getting a lot of great interest in the mortgage industry today as a whole.
Right.
To go a little bit deeper to your question, Brian, on the types of data, we have about 300 million records with 300 data fields across those records. And, we enable advanced filtering across, on the property side, things like assessed and appraised value, size and age of home, details such as age of roof, financial information that includes, mortgage, credit, income, net worth, consumer demographic information that includes things like interests and hobbies, transportation information that includes things like make and model of vehicles, and on the weather side that I mentioned, we can filter based on events such as hailstorms that had a minimum of 2-inch size hail, as we think about the impact of that for our business clients and their consumers. So that's a bit of the types of data and kind of who Cole is at a corporate level.
I want to hit that weather one real quick, because it may not directly impact mortgage, but it's fascinating to me because it's an example of how companies like Cole are bringing together consumer data, right? And in this case, dwelling data, housing information and data, and then bringing on top of that this weather data. And so I think I know the play here, right? So if there's a roofing company, as an example, in a market that wants to identify neighborhoods or streets or houses that would be good targets to market to for a new roof, obviously the age of the roof is important, but if you can layer on top of that some weather event that happened, and in this case, would you say 2-inch hail?
Like 2-inch hail is obvious. I think 2 inches is from an insurance perspective where, damage is likely, right? So yes.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I had a little bit of that firsthand knowledge about 3 years ago. Someone came to my door. I think I was out in the front of the house, and someone came up and basically said, "Did you know your house is eligible for a replacement roof, and insurance would cover it?" I'm like, "What? How do you know that? You can't see my roof from here." And sure as heck, it was this plotted data set. I'm like, it was fascinating.
It is.
Yeah. So that's a great example of just how surgical you can get on data to kind of drive into marketing campaigns. So maybe talk about how you guys are thinking about, your platform and your data set with respect to specifically helping drive purchase business for real estate agents and lenders.
Yeah, so it's a good question. And that example that you mentioned in terms of hail is more than just roofing, right? But we'll get to that as we think about use cases for Cole, lenders and insurers, right? If you're thinking of home improvement, certainly as servicing, if you're servicing a policy, that information becomes very relevant. But I guess before we dive into the specific use cases, it might help to kind of give you what perspective that we hear in terms of the kind of the overall and overarching trends and pain points across the markets that we serve. And I probably put them into maybe 4 areas. One is really knowing how to access the right prospects at the right time, right? So, for instance, how do I build that relationship with a potential seller nearby to a home that has sold or is listed? How do I connect with people in my area before their policies come up for renewal? How do I know who's a candidate for a home equity or a home improvement loan based on events and triggers such as what we just talked about with weather? So that's getting to the right prospects at the right time across industries is something that we hear again and again. Secondly is and I've heard this in my last life and talking to folks in the mortgage industry is how do I get my teams to more effectively prospect? And for us, this is about that idea of this multi-channel marketing strategy. There's something that we'll talk about in a minute called circle prospecting, that if you're in the brokerage industry and real estate, you probably do or may at least know about. And this is something that really is leveraging the fact that we have those contact points that can trigger with the data that triggers an event or an opportunity that they can use for that kind of multi-channel prospecting and done at a hyper-local level. Again, this is our view is you want to deliver value, you want to do it at a local level. These businesses that we work with are really trying to focus at hyper-local marketing.
Right.
The third is again, it's consistent, I think, across all industries is attracting and retaining those top performers. Technology and tools can be very helpful in this area. Cole is something that where we've heard again and again is how do I build a tech platform that is going to help me retain and recruit top talent, and we've been fortunate to be part of that valued tech platform. And then fourth, I'd say is how do I build a more sticky referral network? Right. Again, I don't care if you're a real estate agent, a mortgage lender, a title agent, insurance provider, or a home services provider. This ecosystem works very closely to generate referrals, and having technology that can facilitate that is very important. So that gives you a little bit of a kind of an understanding of the types of pain points that we hear about on a consistent basis across industries. Now, as we get into the use cases, more specifically, I'll come back to circle prospecting. This is probably the most widely used use case or implemented use case for Cole, used by not only brokerages and agents, but mortgage lenders use this, insurance providers use this. I was just talking to a title company that is using what's called Cole Realty Resource as a circle prospecting tool, where they will look at a radius within a neighborhood of a home that is either just listed or sold or has had an open house, and now aggregate the Cole data within that radius to create this multi-channel outreach. They'll typically start with a phone call. They'll send a periodic newsletter, maybe once a month. They'll supplement that with some video content on another second half of the month. They'll build social media content and then direct mail as a result. So we've not only give them the data to create the triggers to build that multi-channel campaign, but then we also integrate with telemarketing platforms, direct mail platforms that will allow them to make that turnkey.
Got it.
Probably one of the most common use cases, and what it does is it done right and done consistently and done in a timely fashion, it keeps those companies and businesses top of mind in anticipation of a transaction downstream. So I'll stop there, but I'd probably say a lot of other use cases for Cole, that kind of comes to the surface as the one that's used most frequently.
So that when I think of that one, I'm thinking about new client acquisition, creating opportunities, right? So these are typically going to be consumers and prospects that I haven't yet transacted with. Is there a use case where I have an existing client database, say 10,000 records, and I can have Cole, overlay some data from Cole on top of that to identify opportunities within that database?
Absolutely. It comes a bit to, we talked about weather earlier. So think of Cole's data to be able to enable, let's say, a loan servicing company or an insurance company to identify opportunities within their servicing portfolio to re-engage. It might be, again, it could be something that happened in the neighborhood. It could be something that happened through a recent weather-related event. It could be a demographics change at the consumer level, whether there's a financial change or, we have the ability to tell a business how many generations live in the home, right? So there are trends and triggers that are not only useful from a prospecting perspective. If you have an existing client, you can overlay this data through our API to augment what data you may already have for your existing portfolio. And again, insurance, mortgage, this applies there, as well as even home services companies. If you're a solar, we do some business in the solar industry. Again, a lot of these triggers are very relevant to what's going on in solar. It could be an event, or it could be a change in your what's happening with your client and some of the other information that we're pulling that allows that service company, like a solar company, to re-engage. So it's not just about prospecting; it's about this. I'll call it lead and service enhancement through the business intelligence of the API. That we can pull in that additional data.
And if I think I understand the concept on augmenting existing leads. So if I'm generating short form leads on a website through a funnel, with as long as there's certain data attributes in that lead record that can be mapped to your database, I'm assuming that's where all that contact information can be appended to really drive up the actionable value of that lead itself.
Yeah, that's a great example. Web forms, Brian, enter your address here, right? And most people will not enter more than one piece of information,
right?
If you want any kind of engagement. And so, based on that attribute, we'll be able to tell you name, address, contact information, and all the other, 300 or so attributes for that data field, just by that one element that we're referencing. So absolutely, in the API platform. So there's kind of two aspects to how we deliver the solution. One is through these vertically integrated, purpose-built UI platforms that are optimized for real estate, insurance, home services, et cetera. And then there's this real-time API platform that's doing exactly what you mentioned, where we append the rest of the data on Brian based on the address that he entered in his web form, and that's done on a real-time basis through our API.
Yeah, that actually is super amazing. That's what I call the spooky data, right? It's like how do you know not only who I am but what my job history and hobbies, all those things you mentioned. It's we as humans definitely leave a digital trail out there, don't we?
And what's one of the ways we deliver, for instance, the data from our API is the data is integrated. It could be integrated at an enterprise level, or it could be integrated through the CRM that an enterprise uses, right? So we partner with CRM vendors with this API platform called Fetch that will allow that data enhancement to happen for the CRM vendors to create more actionable and valuable marketing campaigns, right? So it's not just happy birthday or recipes, after Christmas kind of thing. It is very specific information now that, like you said, it could be kind of viewed to be spooky data, but at the end of the day, the most successful people here are the ones that are delivering value, right? They are adding value to their existing clients. They can anticipate that you may have had damage we recognize, for instance, in this weather example, that you had a storm. Just reaching out to see if everything is okay. I'm not trying to sell you anything,
Right.
but this is information that is helpful to build that lasting relationship, and that's what our clients, and that's what FinLocker does as well. It's what we're trying to do, is build that long client relationship, that client for life kind of a relationship with data that is not meant to be intrusive, but is meant to be supportive.
Yeah, the way I think about it is, this isn't data that is going to, that is going to be valuable in a spamming kind of way. It's the value of the data allows you to communicate with a prospect in a very relevant, timely way for where they are in their life or where they are relative to some recent event like the storm you referenced. So I think to me, it's a more effective way to communicate with consumers, because now your communication is going to be very relevant to them based on what the data tells you. Now, whether or not that leads to, a product sale or anything is not the point, but the point is you're able to establish a relevant, interaction that hopefully starts to build on that relationship, to your point.
Totally. One of our, very successful brokerages kind of refers to this upstream, if you will, engagement as, you get them during the dreaming phase. Let's say it's, someone down the street sold my home, or I'm in a downsized situation in my life, or there's something that is changing demographically. I want to get to that person when they're starting to contemplate, when they're starting to dream what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not there to sell them anything, but I'm there to just let them know I'm here to support them, and I kind of understand what they're going through. It's done right. You're a tremendous asset for that person, because most people, I think it's 63%, will, they're working with an agent, for instance, based on a referral, and so that's typically coming from someone that they trust, right? Whether it's a friend, a family, or another business, and so if I can develop that trust directly, then all I'm doing is I'm helping my opportunity to engage with that person, downstream.
And I just to kind of tie it back specifically to the mortgage industry, I talk a lot about the point of sale versus the point of thought, which you reference kind of that dream phase, right? And if the days of really being able to execute at the point of sale as a loan officer in particular are, well, first of all, we just had a massive switch in the market. We went from the refinance market where loans were falling out of trees, so everyone was successful, to now this much smaller pie, and it's primarily driven by new home purchases or existing home resales. And if you're going to wait and be in the position where you're waiting for someone to raise their hand and say, "I'm ready to get a loan," it's going to be a tough go. And so what I love about what you guys are doing, and to some degree how it kind of meshes with how we think about, early engagement, you're providing a set of tools to a lender, a loan officer, a real estate professional that allows them to intentionally and intelligently build a relationship when there's not a sale to be had.
Exactly.
And that takes, not everyone's geared for that. I'm sure you guys find that out, and we certainly do. But those that have that mindset, that long game mindset, I believe are going to be winners in this business for, an extended period of time. And I think anybody that's watching this episode today and who's thinking about themselves and if they're a loan officer and you're thinking about your career, you need to be talking to folks like Peter and Cole about how do you build a strategy that's not focused on today, but it's focused on the next 12 to 24 months of business. And it's engaging with folks like yourself to build that kind of ecosystem so that you have a steady stream of viable prospects to work with.
Yeah, it's like managing a sales pipeline, right? I look at it through that lens that you're in a low interest rate environment. You didn't have to really worry about building a pipeline because the business was there.
Yeah.
In a market like this, and any market that's volatile, the ones that are the most successful are the ones that are prepared for it. And whether you say it's an 80-20 or a 90-10 rule, it's those people that are the most successful are the ones that are building that pipeline, not just to sell, but to build the relationship, to build the trust, to deliver value, and they know. They know their markets, and that's why I say it's local. This is not about how much data I can provide. It's for us, it's the quality of the data that I think is actionable within a hyperlocal or a neighborhood environment that allows any of these businesses to be able to build that pipeline because they're delivering value. They're personalizing, if you will, the data for the client.
I get it, man. I think it's super cool. Really happy for you, and it sounds like you made a great move, and you got a great established business that now is looking to break into this mortgage industry, and the timing couldn't be better for a product and service like what you all have. Peter, I appreciate you coming on today. This has been super interesting for me, and I'm sure my audience will find it equally interesting. And this will be the podcast is you pushed out through our LinkedIn post. So if you're getting to this podcast through our LinkedIn post, you'll see Peter's LinkedIn profile and the company Cole's link here, so you can connect with Peter that way. And again, I just appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us.
Absolutely, Brian. Appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. It's a great team. We've built a good brand. Excited to be expanding into mortgage. Just a fun anecdote. Cole is only one of two data providers whose data is housed in the Library of Congress.
Oh man!
So I thought that's kind of cool when I learned that. I said, this is kind of proof positive that we're doing a lot of the right things, and excited to be here. And I love what you're doing. It's educating the market, the ecosystem. We're all learning from each other, so hugely appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next Friday.